Recording time. Welcome to the 8th episode of Serve. If it's your first time here, Serve is my series where every Saturday I try and show you guys some of my favorite recipes, cooking methods, and techniques. And for this episode, well, let me just tell you over here. Well, this is a bit different. Normally, I would announce whatever the meal is gonna be over here and then move the camera angle to here, and you guys will only see like my bottom half and I'll be doing a voiceover. But as I was thinking of concept ideas for the next Serve videos, I remembered that the reason I'm making these cooking videos in the first place isn't just to get a video, to continue the series going, but it's really because I kind of want to show to not just my friends, but to anyone that cooking isn't really hard and it's not something that you should be okay with not knowing how to do. Everyone should know how to cook as long as you can afford to do it. You shouldn't kind of just rely on your parents or rely on people to kind of serve you, which is why I named the series Serve in the first place. So it occurred to me that most, let's say, kids or young adults might not know how to cook because they haven't watched as many recipes as I have or as many cooking shows as I have. So even though I'm not a master pro chef, there are things that I know that some people might not, and when they go in the kitchen, do something wrong, they might get discouraged. And I think in this episode, I want to kind of clear just a few things, and I decided that I'm going to go over some of the most common seasonings that I use in the kitchen. Of course, we'll go over them one by one in order, and I think the first thing I'll start with is the most basic, most common seasoning of ever, which is salt. This is a honey jar that we got a long time ago, and this is a Bahama Breeze spoon. But in there, we have just regular, I think iodized sea salt. And I don't have to go over this very much, we just buy normal salt from the store, put it in here whenever we need it, take a scoop or reach in and take a pinch, and it's just a very convenient way to have salt on hand. I don't really use more coarse rock salt that you have to put in a grinder and grind directly, mainly because there's really no point, there's really no benefit. Salt is not something that can be that premium unless you get some fancy flavored seasoned salt or some smoked salt. I don't use that ever, and I don't really see the point to, because most of the food that I cook doesn't require stuff like that. So this is how we manage the salt in this house. And then for the pepper, we have two options, and I don't know why we have two options. We actually have another pepper grinder in the cabinet. I don't know why we have that much, but right here I have this pre-ground, hopefully it'll focus, thank you. We have this pre-ground black pepper, and then these peppercorns that, have the grinder attached. I don't have a preference at all, and I actually don't use pepper very much. I put it on my potatoes last night, and it was very delicious. So one thing I'm gonna do in the kitchen is definitely try to use pepper a lot more. But again, not something that needs to be too fancy, and not something that deserves much attention either. So then now we're gonna move on to some actual spices. The first, and you can see that I'm really loving it because that shit's almost empty. This, along with cayenne pepper, are one of, or two of, my most used spices. I sprinkle garlic powder on everything. It could be toast, it can be a steak I just cooked, and when it's still hot and kind of cooling down, I'll sprinkle garlic powder on it. What else? Over rice. And when I mean I sprinkle it on anything, it really could be just any savory food, regardless if it's sweet, if it's a meat, if it's a bread, if it's, like I said, rice. Garlic powder, one of my most used spices for sure. And then cayenne. Cayenne is a very good option for when you don't want something blistering hot, because I like hot sauce and I like my food pretty spicy. But sometimes you don't want the sauce, sometimes it's just better to have it dry. That way, instead of like taking a bite of food and tasting the food and then tasting the sauce that's covering the food, you kind of just taste that the food is spicier. That's what cayenne does for me. I really like the flavor of just regular cayenne. Again, this isn't smoked, this isn't anything fancy. It's just regular cayenne from the most like generic brand, Badea, or however you pronounce it. Next is onion powder. To be honest, not only I don't use onion powder very much, I don't really like it because it doesn't have the flavor of like cooked onions. It has the flavor of raw onions, which no one really likes. Like even green onions, you don't normally eat them, even though you eat them raw, you eat green onions raw. They're like a garnish, but this just tastes like if you were to incorporate the raw onion flavor that you normally don't want into your food. And I don't use onion powder at all, but we still have it in the cabinet because mom be using it sometimes if she wants. And then we have paprika. A little thing about paprika is this was my favorite seasoning or spice, whatever, when I was little, when I was learning how to cook and all I knew how to really cook were eggs and potato tots. I would load my scrambled eggs up with paprika just so the egg could kind of turn like pinkish red or like orange. And I thought it was so cool. And I liked the taste. And I never stopped liking it. Paprika is definitely a must-have for things like fried chicken or any breading, anything like with savory dough, or savory breading, that is it's definitely like a must-have for that. And then last for the spices is chili powder. I wish I had chipotle powder because normally we do, but I don't have it right now. But chili powder is a little similar. Okay, it kind of has like hot Cheeto essence. It's basically, I'm pretty sure it's the main like spice in Flaming Hot Cheetos. And again, it's pretty, I use it a lot for seasoning, of course, and for sauces. Like this can make a quick chili or like chipotle mayo. Obviously it's not chipotle, but I kind of use this the same way I use chipotle, and you can make a quick little condiment with it, and very versatile. It's very good. So that's it for the spices. Next we'll go over more like seasoning blends. So Tony, you know, I've seen this man in my house for like, how old am I? 17? I've seen this man in my house like probably my whole 17 years of living. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Chachers? And nigga, I don't know. What I do know is that it's almost out because we use it a lot, and especially, you know, like my mom and dad, they'll use this very much. There's different, yeah, you can see it on the back. There's different options. We have the normal one, spicier one, and then like an extreme spice. And this is really good if you're really just lazy, to be honest. This is a very lazy seasoning, but it hits, so it's okay. And then my dad, he doesn't like his food salty at all. So recently we started having this in the cabinet, the no salt variant. Can you focus? Hello? Okay, we have this no salt variant, and yeah, it's the same exact seasoning, just without the salt. So now we're gonna get into what I call the rubs, or the mixes. Technically, the Creole seasoning fits in this category, but I'm very familiar with Creole seasoning, so I wouldn't put it in there. But for the rubs, I'll start with this. This is like a pre-mixed, garlic, onion, black pepper, sea salt. Luckily, I like this, but not something I would normally buy, but I do actually like the flavor of this It's not too bad. But I'm talking about things like this. This brand is called Killer Hog, and it is a very well-known, like, esteemed barbecue brand. The thing with it is, like, they look really nice, like on the shelf, like, or like at home on the shelf or at the store. They look really nice, but you end up not using much of it. So as you can see, we have 3 of them, and we've had these for like a year minimum. Okay, these should be able to be used on things other than barbecue, but this is where the hot one is. This is where the steak rub is, and then this is the normal barbecue rub. It's the least used, the normal barbecue rub. They're not bad seasonings. It's just a gamble that you technically shouldn't do. Something like this, I didn't buy and I didn't ask for, but it just showed up in the pantry or in the cabinet, and I used it, and I like it. But when my dad pulled up with these 3 big ass like seasoning blends, I knew we weren't gonna use them for years. Like, it's gonna take a long time for us to end up using them. So I would advise to not do this unless you know for sure, like, I'm gonna, like, unless you know what the seasoning already tastes like, or you're just fine with anything and you're not that picky. But I tend to use a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I would literally rather take these 5 spices out of the cabinet with salt, with pepper, than to reach for this and sprinkle it in. I don't know why. I really don't. But it's just a habit to not use this. I'll try to start using it, but I would advise against it. So that's it for the spices and seasonings, but I think there's a little bit more information that I can share. So I'm gonna go over the most common oils that we use in the house, starting with the humble lard. This is, okay, I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't even tell you what this is. This is just the fat from whatever I can pull fat from. Steak trimmings, bacon grease, pork grease, beef grease, like anything. This is a very good way to, I'm not trying to say like save money, but a lot of people would dump grease out when you can cook with it perfectly fine as long as it's clean. So mine right here is fairly clean. You could use this for really anything. You can put it on toast. You can use lard for whatever you want, but I don't have the, normally we get like a big tub of rendered pork fat, and I'll use that. It's not expensive, it lasts a long time, and it's not sketchy. Like, you can, it comes in like a clear tub, so you can see that it's like clearly fat. If you want to use lard, try not to use anything that's in like a, this is just like personal experience, try not to use anything that's in like a opaque container, like you can't see through it, because you want to be able to see the imperfection of the lard. Like, you want to be able to see brown bits at the bottom. That's how you know it's actually rendered fat and not just some junk oil that they label as lard. The next most common oil will be avocado oil. This is what I used before I started using lard. Avocado oil isn't bad at all. It's very high smoke point. You can fry. Technically, you can deep fry in this. I don't. You can sear steaks, eggs. Very versatile, and it's odorless, which makes a huge difference because you don't want to be, you know, cooking something really hot with some stinky oil. So it's not terrible. I don't know if it's expensive or not. I haven't looked at the price of oil in a while. Not a terrible option. If I couldn't use lard and I needed to fry something or I needed to cook something really hot, this would be my second go-to. And then, speaking of stinky oils, we have olive oil. My parents use this more than I even think they do. Like, literally, we're always buying more and more olive oil. I understand using it as like a dressing, and like if you want to make some type of dressing out of it. But for cooking, I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't smell good to me. I think it smokes like really easily, and I think it's also not cheap, which is like the opposite of avocado oil. I don't know why we use this why we use this so much. I understand using it for dressing, even though I don't like the flavor or taste of it or smell. But yeah, avocado oil, this is a no-go if you're trying to cook something hot and quick. Maybe like for baking, again, I'm just not a fan, so I can't tell you when to use this, but I can tell you when to not use it. And then, unfortunately, we have stinky vegetable oil. This, like, the use of this okay, this has one purpose in the house: deep frying. We do not, this like never touches a pan, basically. It always goes in the pot, we deep fry it. It's not expensive, like no odor, like it doesn't have any weird smell. This is the most common thing to fry things in, other than canola oil, peanut oil. Vegetable oil is like, a very common thing to deep fry things. But they do say very clearly in the ingredients, soybean oil. So they think they're slick. Instead of putting soybean oil, they put vegetable oil, as if it's like just oil squeezed out of fresh vegetables, but it's soybeans. So I would advise to stay away from this when you can, but don't be afraid of it. Like, it's not gonna kill you, but if you have the budget to deep fry everything, cook everything in lard, like lard is the ultimate option. You can use it for toast, you can use it for deep frying, you can use it for searing steak, you can use it for technically dressing. Like, this is the ultimate option, but it's kind of the most expensive. So if you can afford it, do it this way. But yeah, this stinky. And then last up, we have butter. What is there to know about butter? Basically, you don't want to use it for anything that's gonna be too hot. Like, you definitely wouldn't sear a steak in it because it would burn, and when butter burns, it is bitter and doesn't smell great, and it's kind of just a waste. So where you use butter, you guys know, toast. You can use it to baste a steak, but I don't baste because I think it's kind of a waste. You end up dumping out most of the butter anyway. But it is the best fat to use for like cold application. So whenever you just need some type of oil, I can't really think off the top of my head when you'll need this, but whenever you need oil and it's not gonna be like on direct heat on the pan, butter is most of the time a pretty good option. But yeah, man, that's it. That's today's Serve episode. I really think it's a necessary one, because if I just spam recipes, sure, they're entertaining, but to be able to just sit down in front of the camera and talk to you guys about whatever I've learned over my years of cooking at home, it's a valuable type of video to make. I just realized that in a normal Serve episode, I would end it by eating all of the food and then bending down the camera and saying bye to you guys. But since there's no food, I can't do that. So as to not break tradition, I think I'll take a bite out of this fine cuisine. Could use some salt. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and if not, I'll give you a reason to tomorrow.